2026 isn't going to reward hype, but it is going to reward preparation. That's what we're going to talk about today on my YouTube channel. So come on, let's go. All right, so welcome back to my channel. Let's go ahead and get into it. As I stated, 2026 isn't going to reward hype. No, 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 no. It is going to reward preparation. So, inflation, it isn't dead. Risky moves could hurt more than it could help. I want to talk to you all about this because I know so many people are going into the new year with New Year's resolutions. Uh, as you've already seen in my previous videos, I talked to you from 20 years of financial background along with biblical principles. So I make no bones about it. We're going to talk about it from the way God sees it, according to his word, and how we should move as believers. People will not win next year if they're doing things for hype or for attention, but they will win doing things boring. And that's just keeping it real. Think about it. If you've ever sat down with anyone, talked about insurance or finances, you already know it's a boring conversation. But it's the boring things and the uncomfortable things that help you to grow and that will move your money. So let's talk a little bit about, what's coming in 2026. Inflation is going to be cooling, but it will be a sticky situation. What I mean by that is you're going to see prices rise, then you're going to see it seem like they're stabilizing, but then yet again, they could rise even more before the end of the year or towards the end of next year when we start seeing things kind of taper off as far as prices not going out the yin yang like they are right now and like they probably will be at the beginning of 2026. And even wages may lag behind with real cost, meaning you may see as far as wages, jobs, the market, it may seem as if people aren't working or if there aren't new jobs being created, but there will be. But that doesn't mean that you won't see the costs going up before you actually see the changes in wages. So let's talk about uncertainty and the stability over speculation. So there will be a lot of uncertainty going on in the market, kind of like what you've seen this year, but maybe even greater. So if any of you own stocks or investments, you may see where one day the stock market is wide open and the particular stock that you own is doing phenomenal. Then the next day or a couple of days later, it may drop. That's for people who are invested in cryptocurrency, people who are invested in mutual funds, options trading, pretty much all over the market. You're going to see that up and down yo-yo as you've seen this year, but over time that should stabilize. And these are just things that I'm seeing just from history and just where we are going from where we are ending this year. But I will make a disclaimer. I am not a certified financial planner. I no longer hold a stockbroker's license. I'm just telling you from having worked in the industry for over 20 plus years, what currently is happening with my own portfolio, along with information that I read, just like you. I am a consumer, but I'm also a business owner, and I also have some of the background knowledge to help me. So I don't want anyone saying, Ebony said this is exactly what's going to happen, because none of us knows what tomorrow will hold. We can only go by past predictions of what we've seen in history, and just also with doing our homework, doing the boring stuff, reading information, understanding the market, understanding finances. So this isn't going to be a crash economy for 2026, but it is going to be a grind economy, meaning you're going to have to work for what you see. And I don't mean that in a bad way. No, I know as a believer, we always believe, favor, that God will bless us, and He will, but it does not come without work. We already know that. And so I just want to put you in the mode that you're going to have to put some work in. That's just how it is. We're not in a fairy tale world. So what we need to be looking at, and I'm going to talk to you in layman terms for all of you who don't have investments or don't understand the stock market, or maybe you think, oh my gosh, is this video all about investing? No. But what I am going to share with you is something that's going to be very pivotal, that will help just an everyday person who's never traded, invested, don't understand that, which is high yield savings and CDs. They're going to matter again. They're going to show, excuse me, that is a smart savings move. You want to move smarter and not harder in 2026. So high yield savings and CDs are going to be finally competitive. You're going to see rates way better than you would get just being in a regular savings account at your bank, with that 1% or less. You're going to see much more competitive rates than right now. And what happens when you invest in a high yield savings account is going to help you outpace inflation without the risk. What do I mean by that is the price of bread is going up, gas is going up, all kinds of things are rising. You already see that, eggs, you name it. Remember when we had the egg phenomenon? Well, if you're invested in a high yield savings account, let's just say you're getting 4% interest on that high yield savings account, but the cost of eggs and bread and gas, all the things that we use on a regular to survive, they're only going to go up, let's say, at 2%. But let's just say it goes up 2%. If you're bringing in 5% or 4%, excuse me, I said 4, so we'll stick with 4 on your high yield savings account, then you're up 2% in your money growing than the 2% and the cost of that bread or that gas or those eggs. So that's how you stay ahead of inflation, and you don't find yourself, in a predicament where you just can't survive. But you could also find yourself in a predicament where you're thriving, because if you're getting 2% more than what the cost of eggs, gas, uh, things are going up, then you're doing pretty good. So let's talk about this liquidity as well. There's going to be some flexibility in uncertain times, meaning you're going to need to have access to your cash. So possibly tying it up in the market right away may not be the most advantageous thing for you. I'm not going to say don't invest in the market, because that's how you're going to grow your money overall long term. But from a short term standpoint, just looking at 2026, you are going to want to have liquidity, which means the quickest way that you can get your hands on cash without just having it sitting in cash. So that's where you have that high yield savings account going, and some other things similar to that. So not everyone needs to be invested aggressively, is what I'm trying to say here. And so take it for what it's worth, but borrowing money earns quietly, but it lets you sleep. So for all of you out there that are just like, I don't trust the cryptocurrency world, and I'm not saying that because I do have cryptocurrency, or I don't trust the stock market world. I'm not saying that because I am invested in the stock market, or I don't trust all this other stuff, or they're saying I gotta tie my money up in all this crazy, expensive, risky stuff. That's not what I'm saying for 2026. A high yield savings account, a CD, yes, boring money, but it earns quietly, but it lets you sleep. And for some people, they just don't have the stomach for the other stuff. So, good news, you can see your money grow without all of the risk and grow beyond inflation. So, let's get to the return of the boring money. Budgeting is no longer going to be optional. It's protection. You have got to budget. I said, and I come closer. Hello, hello. You've got to budget, okay? Emergency funds is going to reduce stress and bad decisions. You're going to have your money, some money available for emergencies, maintenance on a car, things going out within your home, um, situations that's just beyond your control. You're going to want to have emergency money put up, because it's going to reduce stress and making bad decisions as far as going out and getting loans or using high interest credit cards. Steady saving beats time in the market. And I know a lot of people probably don't want to hear this, and I may get some people saying something. Again, I'm not saying don't invest. I'm going to remain invested, but I also have emergency savings. I am invested in high yield savings accounts. They've been a blessing to me, and I'm sure they'll be a blessing to you. So you're going to want to have that money steady, excuse me, and it's going to beat the market, beat timing the market, not beat the market, but it's going to be timing the market for you all who just don't have it in you to take the risk, or you don't understand enough to take risk. Consistency is going to be cleverness. Cleverness meaning you're clever by staying consistent, constantly putting money away every single month, constantly finding ways to save, reducing the debt, reducing some of those bad habits, because boring habits aren't outdated. They're anti-fragile, okay? Anti-fragile is the way I like to put it when it comes to boring habits, okay? That many people will find unattractive but are so necessary. So let's get ready to close this video. We're going to talk about budgeting and cultural shift, okay? So the goal here is it's not just people are constantly saying, things are not in their budget. It's not in my budget. I don't have the money for it. I can't do it. It's not in my budget to do this. you know, those type of things. And that's where you've got to find a budget. I hear people say it's not in my budget to save, but it is. It's in your budget if you start off living in a posture at the beginning of the year of not spending so much or having to live off of less. You'll find a way to do it. And that's something you're going to have to do in 2026, because the less you worry about money, the less pressure you have to keep up appearances, the more you budget, the easier it's going to be to budget. And I'm here to tell you, and we're going to talk about that at the very end of this video, that God is honored when you know how to manage money. He is. He really, really is. If you want to witness to people, the fastest way, and I remember hearing this pastor say this, people can't see your spirit necessarily. I mean, you can, but you can't. What I mean is, if you are connected spiritually, you may be able to see someone's motives as far as discernment. But you can't see a person's heart. Only God knows a person's heart. So you can't look at me, Ebony, and just say, oh, Ebony has such a beautiful heart. Oh, look at that wonderful person. They're just so high up spiritually above the clouds. They're so wonderful. That's not what attracts people. People look at your life. That's what attracts them. And one of the quickest way to turn a person off to Jesus is financial struggle. If they see you struggling, you can barely pay your bills, you can't take care of your children, you can't take care of everyday living expenses, you don't have money saved, you're in a boatload of debt, that's a huge turnoff for a person that's not a believer. I can tell you that I know. I've met many people who are not believers, and that's one of the things that turns them off. And even believers, that turns them off to see other believers struggling. But one of the greatest ways that you can make a stance for Jesus and get people excited is your life. When they see your life is in order, when they see that you have savings, that you're not frantic, you're not standing in the same line as someone else who maybe doesn't know him, trying to get financial resources. You're not getting in all this debt with credit cards because you're trying to pay bills. Now, I'm not saying you don't fall on hard times. We all do, we all have, but we shouldn't stay there. So I'm not shaming anyone who's gone through challenges in their life, but the problem is staying there. I'm not talking about a few months, a half a year, I'm talking about years and years of constant struggle, always trying to figure a way out. You've been working. I'll use myself as an example. I've been working for 31 years, so you can guess my age. I started working at 15 years old. And to think that after 31 years of working in the workforce, working jobs, and partially I've also been self-employed for a little over 10 years now. For me not to be able to pay um, regular bills, not have any savings, can't go out and get a car if I really, really needed a car, not able to uh, help someone else without taking everything from myself, my savings, not being able to care for myself, my husband not being able to care for us, care for himself. If I couldn't do that after 31 years, I definitely did something wrong, especially as a believer, someone who says they believe that God owns everything, everything, and that he's good, good, good to his children, and that he's a generous God, and that he's a loving God, and that he's a faithful God. To say that, and after 31 years of working in the workforce, I'm just barely making it, that says something. That says I've had a habitual lifestyle of mismanaging money. So I want you to think about that if you are a Christian and if you have worked more than, I'd say, 5 years in the economy, more than 10 years, and you still don't have anything together. You still struggle. You don't have money saved. You don't have any investments. You don't have a high yield savings account, never had one. And again, I'm not coming down on people. I'm just saying that it's time out. In 2026, we should be able to be an example of what God can do when you manage money well, when you steward things the way you're supposed to steward them, when you're not trying to keep up with the Joneses, when you have more than enough than what the Joneses have to help someone else. I'm not talking about being poor. I'm not talking about having just a little. I'm talking about living a life of abundance. What God has said to us that we would have in this lifetime. So I know talking about money is becoming more normal now. It's not awkward anymore. You're going to see more and more people talking about money. And talking about money for me isn't about, oh, showing off and trying to be big willy and all that kind of stuff. Or as my aunt used to say, rest her soul, trying to be biggity. It's about freedom for me. It's always been about freedom. So many people have misunderstood when I talk about money and finances, why I'm so grateful to God that I started at 22 years old, and 20 plus years later, I'm still in that arena because it has been a blessing to myself, to my family, to people around me, to understand how money works at a certain level. Not saying I've mastered it, but I'm definitely not in bondage to it. And so money is more becoming more and more of a norm now because people know they need it for so many reasons, even to do things within the gospel, to be able to be a blessing, to be able to get more word out to further areas. It takes money. It does. Whether you see it on social media, whether you see it sitting in a traditional church, or whether you just hear about it in it helping to get needs met for individuals, especially in the time now. The churches are one of the biggest places that people are going for help. And if the church needs help, we need help, right? Okay. And transparency, let's talk about that really quick. It's going to lead to better decisions. So being transparent about your money, where you are, it's going to be a huge, huge factor. You know, you can't lie about it anymore. Where you are is where you are. Keep it real. That's the only way you're going to get free and you're going to do better. So the last things I want to leave you with is recapping. What you're going to need in 2026, you're going to need to have an emergency fund. You're definitely going to need to save automatically. You're going to know that it's not wise to chase trends or to those kind of things, and to value your peace over flashiness, and just trying to show off and be the big Willie. You know what I'm saying? And so practically what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to open or optimize a high yield savings account. Many banks have it. Credit unions are the best. I have one with a credit union because they offer me more than my traditional bank, but I do bank with a bank and a credit union. So that's something you need to aspire to do. Um, Build or refill your emergency fund if you don't already have one. 3 to 6 months. I prefer 6 to 12, but start somewhere. 3 to 6 months. Have a way to automatically save where when you get paid, it automatically goes into a savings. Kind of like with the 401ks. That's how people are able to save with the 401k. And some of the other ones is they have it automatic before they even get their check. It goes in there. You can set that up with a regular high yield savings or anything to that effect. You can set it up. Just talk to the bank and find out how you could do that, or the credit union, whomever you're going to bank with. And audit your subscriptions and your expenses. If you've got all these different subscriptions to all these different movie channels and different things that you're not watching, consider canceling them. Or if they're duplicates, you got this kind of subscription for that type of movies and that kind of subscription for that type of movies, or you're eating out more than you should be, limited to maybe once a week or twice a week. Cooking more, that's going to be much healthier for you. I know I went through the health challenge and I've talked about that in some of my other channels, and it was pretty scary because, believe it or not, with the help of the Lord, I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own. The healthcare professionals didn't know what to do because I had such a rare virus that you've never heard of. And it wasn't the C word that everybody's afraid of. It was something way worse. And I was paralyzed for a little while. And then when I came to, it took me a whole year to learn how to walk and get back on my feet. And I'm still not 100%. I walk with the cane, and I don't say that with any shame. I used to be really ashamed to even tell anyone that. But God's been so good to me. Why would I be ashamed? I went from paralyzed to a wheelchair to a walker to now a cane, and soon I will be without any devices. But that was a scary time, but it was also a very expensive time. And had I not known what to do, by the grace of God, I would still be laying in the bed right now, or worse, I may not be here. So I say that to say, eating healthier by eating at home is one of the best things you can do, and it's one of the greatest ways to save money. So now I'm going to leave you with a quick little video on a book that I wrote that's going to help you to discover some of the things that we talked about today. I put it in a book. Yes, I did. And I also put it in a workbook. Yes, I did. And I make no shame or bones about it. So make sure you stay tuned so you can find out how to get the book and the workbook. And also, if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. We're going to talk about finances. We're going to talk about things that's going to help you the end of this year, the next few days we've got left, and going into next year, and so forth and so on. We're going to talk about it from a biblical perspective. So that's where we're going to talk about honesty, integrity, loyalty. All those things come into play from the way God has allowed me to get to a place of no longer struggling and barely getting by. And I'm so grateful for that. Even with huge financial responsibilities that I had to go through by being sick for almost 2 years. Actually, 3 to be exact, but 2 where I was pretty much off my feet. All right, so I thank you all for watching today. Remember, subscribe, like, share the channel with someone else. And as always, I pray you have a most wonderful, blessed, abundant day. Mwah! Love you. Bye.